Hello everybody, this is Cecil Harwell, and this is the long overdue Sketchbook Pro tutorial part 2, where we investigate the color palette. Since the time of the first video, the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 has been upgraded to Jelly Bean 4.1.2, and so the indicator is a little different, which is nice. There are some settings that changed. So when the tablet initially came out, in order for the screencast app to work, obviously you had to root the tablet, and there was an Exynos abuse exploit that was created by our wonderful friend Chainfire, who is a Samsung fanboy and does all kinds of neat things for the Samsung user base. And one of the things he did was made an app that would just root your tablet for you. Actually, it'd root any number of devices. But since 4.1.2 came out, they disabled the exploit. They patched, whatever it was that was allowing that to happen. So now it's a little more complicated to root your tablet, but not too much more so. Also, since the last update to Sketchbook Pro, we now have, let's see, we're going to go to preferences here, and I want to show you guys Pinmode. We're going to turn it on. That enables palm rejection. You can still use two-finger gestures, right? But you can't use one. Like, you can't see that I'm pressing on the tablet with my finger, but I am. And there we go. That's my palm. But if I just put a finger on it and use as a stabilizer, then I'm not actually having to put my palm down. Alright, so that's enough for updates. Now let's just look at the palette here. Now you'll notice I have white, gray. Actually, this is not quite white. It's probably actually not even going to show up in the video because it's so light. But I just choose like a 10% gray, a 20% gray, and so on, right? There's a mid-tone gray. And I also have, here, let me get, the opacity all the way up on that. There we go. And that might also be what was keeping anybody from seeing this color, or this shade, I guess. And then here's the 20% gray. The 40 or 50% gray. Not sure how many stages I actually have here. The 60% gray, or 80 or 70% or whatever. And then finally black. Self-explanatory. Alright. Then as you scroll down through your palette, if you long press, then that gives you the color wheel. This is automatically set to HSB, which is hue, saturation, and black. So 100% white, 0% is black. But I prefer the RGB scale just because it makes a little more sense. You still have access to all the colors anyway, and there's a palette right here you can go with. You can also select swatches. These are Copic colors. And then here's your palette menu. You could grab a color and put it in your, let's pick like this one. Now I can grab that and put that in my swatch palette or whatever. Put an eraser in my swatch palette if I want. So I wanted to basically show everybody some of the basic theories of how color works. Now, There are several different ways to blend color in Sketchbook Pro. One, let's just go with the marker. It's a nice big brush size. Notice the marker is transparent. So no matter how deeply saturated, it's not going to cover over black. So if we clear this and start with just red, you can see it gives you this nice little marker effect, which is great. That's just one way you can blend color. Let's go ahead and pick another one. Let's go with a blue. So see, now you're going to be able to get another range of color through there. If you'll notice, whenever you mix colors that are opposites or close to opposite, you don't actually get the blending color that you would get were you to mix these with watercolor or with acrylic paint. It's more trying to mimic the properties of a marker, so to speak. Let's see, make this a little less opaque, less transparent, or more transparent, less opaque. Glass half full, half empty, whichever. But we still see the basics, right? Like yellow and blue make green, red and yellow make orange. There's some orange. In fact, let's go ahead and take the moment to RGB 255R, 0 green, and 0 blue gives you red. Duh. Alright. Then we'll take our next color and we'll reduce red and green, or red and blue, to 0 and leave green at 255. Now, that's not mixing the way we thought it would, does it? And that's because the marker is staining, or producing it's operating off of the subtractive color model, which reduces to black. Even though we're using RGB colors, which represent the primaries of the additive color model. I have another video on this, 3 videos actually. This was back whenever I was still trying to figure this out myself. So there we go. We get some violets in there now, which is nice. There's a good, nice, dark violet. But see how you can get some cool neutral colors. I mean, cool as in cool, not cool as in cool colors. But ultimately, whenever you're picking colors that are radically different from each other, complementary colors, they're going to reduce to black. But there's a trick which I address in my video on color. Wish I could remember the name of it off the top of my head. I could look real quick, but here, in fact, why don't we just go ahead and look real quick? Oh, there it is. Perfect. Yes, mixing color. So there's part 1, 2, and 3 here. And I hand write everything and just do it time-lapse instead of actually talk about it. But this kind of explains a basic metaphysical problem that I've discovered. And we'll bring that out now. Here, let's go ahead and get us a black background. So how you get black is just by mixing all the colors together. That was green, so now let's get a little red in here. And sometimes it's nice to just mess with it randomly. Just, oh wow, I didn't know those colors would make that color. Or, you know, there's much to be said for creative and haphazard risk-taking in the art-making process. See how this is giving us a muddy brown in some places? Let's see if we can figure out why by increasing the opacity to 100%. Alright, well, this has created a mess. So we're just going to go back over our mess everywhere with every other color to get to black. This is what would happen if you were messing with markers, so okay, there we go. We have black. This is all on one layer. So what I'm going to do now, in order to show you how to really take advantage of the properties, this is where the properties of color in a digital environment, I'm going to go ahead and segue into layers a little bit here. We're going to screen these layers. If you notice, there's a little thing here that says normal, right? Those are the blending modes. Photoshop introduced blending modes, and they do different things. I wish I scientifically understood exactly what was going on with blending modes, and I only partially understand. And so instead of giving you a half-assed answer, I'm going to simply work with these as such, and you can kind of see what happens, and I'll talk about it basically in layman's terms because I don't know much about it beyond lay terms. So I'm going to pick up the brush here instead of the pencil or the pen. I'm no longer using the marker. So these colors are no longer going to be multiplying, so to speak, or creating a marker effect. We're just going to I'm going to reduce the opacity here, and then let's just see what we get. Alright, because red, green, and blue are the primaries of the additive color model, I want to stick with those colors, but I want to screen them so that they actually emulate the additive color model instead of just paint on top of each other like you would if you were using acrylic paint or oil paint. Alright, so there's some red. Now let's go to another layer and we'll add green. And you'll notice that green and red are making yellow. Well, I thought yellow and blue made green. Well, yes and no. Yes, it's true that you do get a green out of mixing red or yellow paint and blue paint. But if you're familiar with oil paints or any kind of pigmentation, then you'll know that it depends on what color blue you're mixing with what color red. For example, if you were to take cadmium red and phthalo blue, you're still going to get a muted grayish purple. But if you were to take alizarin crimson and cobalt blue, then you'd get a much richer violet. Now notice here, whenever you mix red and blue, you don't get purple, you get magenta. And when you mix green and blue, you don't get blue-green or aqua, you get cyan. And when you mix red, white, and green together, you get white. So the additive primaries are red, green, and blue, and they mix together to give you white. Now over here, what we're going to do is, this is an interesting little thing here. Alright, so there's red. Here's magenta by doing red 255, green 0, and blue 255. We're going to put it on its own layer. And we're going to change the blending mode to multiply. I'll just put this over here so you can see what's going on here. Where's some magenta in my picture? There really isn't any, huh? Well, that's alright. And notice if you put a multiplied layer of magenta on top of green, you're going to get black just straight away. So, alright, there's plenty of magenta. Here, we'll just go ahead and carry this all the way over. Notice how in some places, like on top of this red, you don't get any color. And remember, what we've done here is multiplied these layers. So, or this layer is being multiplied. Now we'll add another layer, multiply it, and we'll switch to, we'll switch to cyan. So now we'll take 0 red, 255 green, and 255 blue, and lo and behold, magenta and cyan make blue. You can see that a little more evident here. And now, if we go over the red parts of our underlying layers, you'll notice we get black. Over here, again, nothing. Because cyan and magenta make blue, whenever you put cyan on top of a blue layer, it makes no marks. Let's go over here and see what we can do to some color. Okay, now we're just washing out the red here. So and we're going to do one final color, yellow. And yellow is 255 red, 255 green, and 0 blue. And it also needs its own layer that we're going to multiply. And cyan and yellow make green. Blue and yellow make black. Here, I'll show you that here, right? But notice how what's going on here is really interesting, because in a way you're almost erasing color by adding. I mean, I wish I understood it, and I've spent months. I was actually originally on a Samsung Galaxy Note 7.7, which is great for color visualization because it's the largest AMOLED screen we have available on the tablet market. Toshiba Excite, I believe, also has a AMOLED screen, but it is not the same as the Super AMOLED that Samsung produces. It's like a True Bright or something. Anyway, so yes, you'll see, like, as we add yellow, we get black to all the colors, or to yellow, magenta, and cyan. Okay, so now let me formalize this now that you can kind of see what's going on. I'm going to reduce all these layers. Oops. That's going to take forever here. And now we'll delete them. So what's going on here is this. Going to screen each of these on top, and yes, I could have just set this one layer to screen and then hit the duplicate duplicate layer button and it would have given me 3 screened layers. But alas, I did not. Okay, so on the first screened layer, I'm going to put red. On the next screened layer, we're going to put green. Red and green make yellow in the additive color model. And then on the final screened layer, we're going to put blue. And you'll notice green and blue make cyan, and blue and red make magenta, and the 3 of them together make white. That is the additive color model. We'll label it as such right here. This is used in stage lighting and screen representation, obviously, like a emissive light, right? So then on the other side, on my white side of the page, we're going to make a new layer, multiply it, duplicate, duplicate. Now we have 3 multiplied layers. So just to show you how beautifully this works and how we know that these are the relative primaries, if there are such a thing, I'm going to take the eyedropper to pick my colors. So there's cyan, eyedropper again, yellow, and the eyedropper again, and magenta. Now, if you see here then, okay, and so this color model is emulating pigment, right? And it is the subtractive color model. So what's going on here then is red, blue, green, C, M, oops, M, Y, and then on the other side, Y, M, C, and green. It needs to be a bigger brush. RGB. So basically what's going on here is the primaries of one color model are the secondaries of the other color model, and vice versa. But if a primary is a color that is derivable by no other color set, then how can any of these be primary? It's a metaphysical problem. And just for the sake of checking, what I've done is selected this in the center, and now we're going to see if it's black, and it's not. So this color here looks black. That means there's a problem with whatever colors I selected initially. Like these can't be. That is strange. See, that is that color. We're going to double check. Yeah, somehow we got this muddy green. So what we're going to do is erase the whole thing, delete everything, and try it again. Let's make sure this is black. It is black. Alright, 0, 0, 0. What we're going for here is, I'm going to start with the subtractive primaries this time. Alright, so the only thing I can think of is that those weren't exactly red, blue, and green. So magenta, yellow, cyan. Oops, wrong layer. See, you'll always know that you've messed up if you're blending color this way. Alright, that looks like it may be black. So, let's check and see. It is black. Alright, so what that means is that we've created a problem here. Let's find out where our problem is. 255, 0, and 0. 0, 0, 255. That was our problem. Our blue that we were using was not exactly blue. So, in order to demonstrate again here, we're going to make 3 screened layers. And now I'm going to select the color using the eyedropper, blue. Eyedropper again. We're just taking the secondaries because I want to show you guys how this actually works, and we'll be able to test it out on the other side too. Green. And then I keep wanting to go to my color palette, but I'm wanting to show you guys something here. Red. On our final layer. And voila. It creates white. And we'll test it again. On our base layer. Yes. And we have white. So this is, I wish I had words for this problem. And it may be the simple trick that I'm changing the blending modes of these layers in order to emulate, 1, the pigmentary color model, and 2, the emissive color model on a device that is only emissive. And there may not be an actual problem, but again, like I said, if the secondaries of one color model are the primaries of the other color model and vice versa, and a primary color is a color that is derivable by no other color set, then how are any of these colors primary at all? I've started calling them intrachromatic co-relative primaries or pseudo-primaries or whatever. They basically wind up, you can use one of them to get all colors, but you're having to use transparency to emulate all colors. The other color model, well, this is what I'm getting at. Alright, so I'm going to go to the multiply magenta layer. And I'm just going to select magenta here. And now I'm just going to draw. If you notice, multiply won't let you go over black. It doesn't show anything. So we're just coloring here. And this is where I could reduce the opacity some so that we can get some variation. And we'll want to go to the cyan layer to add cyan. right? And then to the yellow layer to add yellow. Right. And then on the other end of the spectrum, or on the other side, if we want to add, there's blue, red, and green. Oops, wrong layer again. You will mess up the system if you don't have each color on its own layer. But see how that makes yellow and then white in there. There's some more white. Oops, we're still on the wrong layer. Or something's going on here. Oh, we're on the right layer. Oh, that's where we'll make white. So, I'm just going to start deleting these again. I didn't really explain that well, I don't feel, but I'm just going to go with it for now. I want to kind of give you an example of exactly what's going on. Alright, so now we have our brush, and we're just using green normally, but it's somewhat transparent, so if we then turn around and take red and put it on top of it, it's not going to do the same thing. It's just laying red opaquely on top of that green. So now this is a little bit more like a traditional color mixing, right? There's a little violet in there, right? If you really give it a light touch. And then here you don't get cyan anymore, you get kind of a blue-green, and you can go back and forth. Right, with this hatching kind of. Let's make our brush a little smaller. And I like hatching to mix color. I think it's fun. You can really get a lot of just, motion. You can really move the eye around, with hatching. And then also you're kind of emulating, you're allowing the eye to mix the color instead of actually mixing the color for the viewer. But now let's take a moment. Let's go ahead and mix all the colors here. So now I'm going to put down some magenta on the same layer. So the only thing that's mixing these colors is just transparency. So this is more of like a building technique, less like watercolor and more like gouache. Add a little yellow. Throw some yellow in here. Now, there we start to get a little more traditional looking color mixing, right? Where we're making orange with red and yellow. Add a little cyan. Now, both the beauty and the tragedy of mixing with pure color is that you don't, well, pure color rarely appears in nature. Birds, insects, fish, reptiles, and flowers, amphibians. Mammals are not often so brightly colored, right? So you wind up wanting to make spot colors. Well, that's all well and good. There's plenty of room for spot colors, and you can make whatever color you want. Here, let's just add a brown. But if you really want to understand what's going on with color and, develop a relationship with the, underlying nature of color, then, you want to stay as close to a primary model as you can. And some people would say, well, not really. I mean, you can always use spot colors, and then if you want to increase luminosity, then you can, glaze or, apply different blending modes, and that's actually what we're about to do once I, again, I'm not really, drawing anything. I'm just making abstract shapes and filling in colors, and just so that you can kind of see what's going on. And of course, I could go darker if I wanted, and let's increase the brush size a little bit and maybe the opacity a little bit. So while you can mix colors as if they were a pencil or a pen or whatever, here, let's make a darker one now. Darker brown, maybe a little redder. There we go. And you can mix just by varying the pressure of your brush. That is what's happening there. You're certainly not limited to that. For example, now that we have a nice solid kind of, set of shapes going on and color fields, let's go ahead and add a layer, and we'll just make it multiply, and we'll mix multiple colors on top of that. So let's go back to our red, green, and blue. So, yeah, see, you can get like a nice stain effect. And that is kind of like what is going on there, right? It's staining the page. Basically, it's taking the value of the color that's being applied and the color that's underneath, and it's multiplying them together to get a darker color. Yeah, but look what happens whenever red is applied over red. It doesn't necessarily just stain, and it's difficult to say. I don't understand exactly what's going on, but I love it. I have a lot of fun, like, just exploring what color properties arise out of. Alright, so let's add some blue to this. Now, whenever we start adding blue to brown, then we're going to get, a blackish, might get some red or some violet. There we go. Nice violet color. And sometimes, one of the reasons I say that it's best to stay with as primary a color set as you can is because, well, you can still get neutral colors from that, although it takes quite a bit more work, a little bit more patience. It also gives you some of these great contrasts, like this tannish orange brown up against the blue as it comes in. Really does kind of pop, right? Starts to give you this feeling that there's something more there, which is exactly what the Impressionists were going for, and it's why they insisted, especially Van Gogh, but Renoir also, and Monet to some degree. They wanted thick paint because it activates the surface and confuses the eye, and then allows for that optical blending to really drive it home. So alright, let's add some yellow. Now, one of the things you may wind up wanting to do is because I'm doing this just on top of the other layers that I had, or just on top of the paint without changing the layer properties or adding another layer. Let's go ahead and add one. Now we'll multiply. Now see what happens. Now when I mix blue and yellow, I get these darker colors. Or whenever I mix yellow and cyan, and again, you're not limited to, I just started putting blue on that new multiplied layer, just so that I could get like a little darker, something a little darker going on. But cyan will do a similar kind of thing. Right. That cyan is nice actually on top of the brown. Gives it this nice green. Let's see what goes on over here. Oh yeah. Nice, huh? And see, here's where we can get into some Viridian. So it is a lot of experimentation and a lot of play. Yeah, now see how applying cyan down here to the red, it's giving me that totally other color. Yes, I do become enchanted by color very easily. Here, let's add one more layer. We'll multiply it too, and then we'll go with some magenta. See, that'll give us blue there. And then over here, it'll give us some brown and blue. Now when we mix it with that green, it'll give us even more black. Just kind of going around the page just to show you, just filling it in and letting you see kind of how colors mix. And, don't feel like you have to limit yourself at all. I mean, we could go with, here, let's add some violet. Yeah, see, now we start getting into some blacks. I also chose a dark violet, of course, but One of the main reasons that I want to get some black on the page is so, I say page, I didn't even have a computer until 2003, and it was with a Wacom tablet that I even learned to do anything more than just email. And of course I dreamed of a tablet like this, back then, and didn't even know how long it would take for us to reach. And yes, I know they have Cintiqs, but I have yet to figure out how to monetize my skills. And from what I've learned of the way the internet works, it's all about producing and putting it on YouTube, and it takes care of itself. So we'll see how it goes. You can expect more videos from me for sure. Alright, so now we have a nice dark surface here. It's got some depth to it, but it's missing. Let's go ahead and really kind of shore this up. Yeah. There we go. Like, really give it some good dark patches. Oh yeah, there we go. The reason I wanted to do that is so now I could come in here and add a few screened layers. But I'm not staying so strict as I was last time, just putting yellow, magenta, and cyan, or red, blue, and green on each layer. Now I'm just gonna, let it come out as it wants. Sometimes you'll find, I don't know, the transparency or opacity or whatever on this is strange, but that's a little too transparent. Now you'll notice that we begin mixing back to white whenever we add, well, all this is going to take is a little cyan. Or blue. And the blue, of course, is muting that yellow into white. Then if we come in here, add a little green on another layer, anyway, you get the idea. So we've not used any white or black per se on this image, but yet we have black and white. And that's all just done through layer blending and basic transparency and opacity. Now, again, I'm just going to clear these. And And as I reduce the layers, you'll see here. Let me actually just take a second and show you guys like what a layer would look like on its own. Alright, how's Douglas? I thought I had blocking mode enabled, but it's still giving me notifications, which I thought it shouldn't. Anyway, Douglas has been the subject of a few of my drawings on my channel. Actually, Douglas was the one who introduced me to Android, and I will be forever grateful to him for that, because I figured maybe they had something, Paint, Microsoft Paint or something available for Android, but I had no idea. Alright, so now we're just going to do some coloring. And show you, basically how to get some effects just using color. So now we're not using any kind of blending modes or layers or anything. I'm just coloring it in. Not to say that you can't use any kind of blending modes. You certainly could. In fact, we could go ahead and just add a multiply layer. I like kind of having this, see? Even that light color will do something crazy to our image. But that's the color we're using right here. If you look down here in the corner, this is the actual color. But whenever it's multiplied, it does this great stuff. And then here we'll just add a screened layer. And we'll just mix it up. So now I'll take this red here, drop my brush size down some. See how that red comes out. Totally different color than what you would think, which is great, because then you can use it all over and get all kinds of different effects just using the one color, right? Like that's ultimately, yeah, see, nice. Would have never thought that that's the color that you'd be making out of this red, huh? So we'll go ahead and use a brown. See, even brown is giving us something, right? Even that dark blue is doing something. So yeah, you certainly don't have to stick with the primary colors, and you can still get some really great effects. Now let's go back to our multiply layer. Let's add another multiply layer in between there. And let's use a violet right through here. And as you can see, as you make these hatching lines across multiple color fields, then it changes the way they're, the colors that you get, which is great. You can really do some cool stuff with the blending modes, which is why I like them. Alright, well, I think that may be all I have for today, or for this video. Actually, I'm going to go out and start looking for flowers. And we'll be doing a still life video here in the very near future. I also have a self-portrait tutorial planned. So, yeah, anyway, ta-da! We could further develop this. Let's get back to screen and... I'm not exactly sure what is even going on here, if this is like some kind of hill or something or what, but like put in some clouds. Or whatever. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So you just never know what you're going to get. I mean, maybe you have a better brain for it and you can figure out better what's going on than I can. I am just doing the best job I can for history. Alright guys, well thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was informative, and happy drawing, or painting, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, totally enchanted by color. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.